What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Logan, and today we're going to be going over some slabs with some really good multipliers. They could be like some 10x, some are like 40, 50x multipliers in a PSA 10. We got a lot to get through, so I do apologize if this video is a little bit longer, but let's just go ahead and jump into it. So this first card is the Drowsy illustration rare from Scarlet and Violet base. If everybody was here during the beginning, this was the original pump and dump card. This card was dirt cheap for a super long time, and then not randomly, but buyout. The pump and dump happened on this card, got up to like $80, $90, and now it's kind of settled in the mid 30s. But the gem rate is really bad on these cards. At like basically almost every illustration rare in the early Scarlet and Violet era, the gem rates are really, really bad. So just look at it right here. You got 1,450 in a PSA 10, 5,400 in a 9, and 1,609 in an 8. Okay? That's a really bad gem rate. Just from a PSA 10 to a 9, that's under a third. Basically 1,500 is 4,500. So we're probably like in the 28, 29% gem rate for this Drowsy right now. Quick math, try to do my best, but obviously it's right around there. But so if you look at it, we're about a mid-30s card, and the last solds in a 10, you got 330, but that was kind of a weird sell. I guess some sells have been kind of funky recently, but because then the ones previous before that were 580 and 625 in a PSA 10. So the Drowsy, you go from a mid-30s to a high 500s, low $600 card. And like I said, this card is iconic to a lot of people that were here in the early and Scarlet Violet era, that people know the hype around this card. Next up, we got the Gardevoir SIR from the Scarlet and Violet era. So the SIR is graded a lot easier than the IRs for some odd reason, just the way the printing was going, I guess. But I'm only doing this card to kind of show the discrepancies it's a evolution line. We're gonna do the evolution line. Same set. One's SIRs, two are IRs. So you got 5,800 in a 10, 6,600 basically in a 9. Last sold to the PSA 10, 255, 266, 205. It's a $52 card. So we're looking at about a 4 to 5x when it comes to gem rates like Multiplier. Next, we got the Ralts. So this one is, wow. This one is really hard to grade right here. There's only 685 in a 10. In a 9, you got 3,300. And an 8, you got 1,400. So there's double the amount of 8s than there are PSA 10s. So the Multiplier last sold was 445. You can get it raw for about $30. So that's over a 10x Multiplier and a PSA 10. Oh, the 541 right here. So that's way over a 10x Multiplier for the Ralts. And then the other one, the Curlia, which is also super hard to grade. It's a mid 25, about $25 card raw. 872 in a 10, 3,000 in a 9, and almost 1,100 in 8. Last sold in a PSA 10, you got 330. 230. So it's not the most popular Pokemon, but it's the discrepancies that the IRs are 10x pluses in a PSA 10, where the SIR, even though it is the Gardevoir and it's the more popular Pokemon, it's easier to grade. There's not that big of a multiplier, but it's still a 4 to 5x multiplier. That's really not that bad if you think about it. Next up, we got the Riolu Scarlet and Violet base set IR. This one's kind of cute. You got the Lucario in the background. You see he just destroyed the house because he's pumping iron. You got 819 in a 10, 2950 in a 9, and almost 1100 in an 8. So the telltale sign at a card is really hard to grade is how many 10s there are and how many 9s there are. And if there's more 8s than 10s, that means it's a really tough grade. So it's a $25-ish card. Last sold in a PSA 10. I think right here you got 375, 380. So it's over a 10x multiplier again for the Riolu. But next up, the Slowpoke. So this card is really iconic because it's like I said, the earlier Scarlet Violet era had a couple of pump and dumps, and this one was part of it. 'Cause I do love this card because he's just so derpy the way he's just popping out the garage, just saying, "Hey, I'm here." But it's a mid $26 card, 716 and a 10, guys, 3100 and a 9, 1400 and an 8. So there's basically double the amount 8s than there is 10s. And last sold in a PSA 10 is 495. 330. That's a good buy right there. Whoever got that okay, that was a funky sell. No way somebody got it for 179 and then 480. So I mean that's way over a 10x multiplier as well. The Grievered, this one you kind of got to watch out for because it is currently in a. People are speculating it's in a buyout because it's kind of going nuts right now because you got the Gengar rug, you got the Ghastly rug. But that doesn't change the fact that there's only 305 of these in a PSA 10, 1,309, and 479 and an 8. Okay, that's still crazy gem rates. Last sold in a PSA 10, you got 200. I feel like that's really low. 500. Okay, there we go. 500. So you got two back-to-backs at 500s. But that's a crazy multiplier. That's almost a. I'm not really good at percentages and off the top of my head, but that's a really good multiplier. Next up, we got the King illustration rare from the Scarlet and Violet era. We got the Magic card from Paldea Evolved. Everybody knows this card is a really, really tough grade. You got 35, 70, and a 10. You got over 10,000 and a 9. And then you got 45, 65, and an 8. For Raw, it's going mid 300s. If you can get it mid 300s, that's really good. TCG, you got 385. But last sold in a 10, you got 2280 and 2265, 2060 in a PSA 10. So it's not quite a 10x multiplier, but for the range that it's in, you go from a $300 and let's say $75 card, $385 card to a couple grand. That's not a 10x multiplier, but that's still a really big jump. Really big jump. Next up, we got the Tyranitar from Paldea Evolved. This card is doing really good right now. Raw specifically, maybe the PSA 10s will catch up here shortly. But TCG players at 76.45. We got 1,500 in PSA 10, 3,900 and a 9, and 17, almost 1,800 and an 8. So last on the PSA 10, you got 650, 825, 515. I mean, there's some funky sales. 535. Whoever's getting those, that's a really good deal. Because that's below a 10x multiplier for a card. That's pretty hard to grade, and it's one of the best illustration rares in the whole era. So yeah, if you can get that at those prices, that's a really good deal. Next up, the Mousehole. So this one kind of went crazy recently. Nobody really thought too much about this card. It could be a buyout. I'm really not sure. But like I said, that does not change the statistics of how hard it is to grade. You got 333 and a 10, 1146 and a 9, and 615 and an 8. TCG player is 64. Last on the PSA 10 is 590. So that's almost a 10x. You got 650. So there's a 10x, 660, 10x. Okay? But like these cards are really hard to grade. So don't think you're just going to go to any booth and find a card and you're like, oh my god, this is the one, because I guarantee you got to be really, really, really picky about the cards that you're wanting to grade because they're that tough of a gem rate. Next up, we got the Sleepy Raichu from Paldea Evolved. You got 1,400 into 10, 3,700 basically in a 9, 1,411 in an 8. Raw is about high 50s, low 60s. Last on the PSA 10, 618. So you got 540 and 585, so they're right around the 10x multiplier. Let's see, the next one, you got the Meryl. So this one's not the most popular Pokemon, but it's still a really tough grade. You got 613 and a 10, 1775 and a 9, 882 and an 8. That was a lot of 8s, sorry. Last on the PSA 10, you got 250, 320, and 240. But for Raw, it's going in the mid-20s, so that's still a 10x multiplier. So that's still a really, really good deal. But it's going to be hard. You're going to have to look for them. The Fuecoco. So I think this one's pretty freaking underrated right now. It's a starter Pokemon for the Scarlet and Violet era. A lot of people, like a lot of kids, when they finally grow up, they're going to be like, this is the starter that I grew up on when we had Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander. They're going to have Fuecoco. And I think he's the most popular one for sure. I mean, Raw is mid-20s. You got 631 in a PSA 10, 1556 in a 9, 714 in an 8. Last sold in a PSA 10 is 200. Any more? At 160. There's got to be one more. At 195. So we're about a $200 and under dollar card for a card that kind of should be a 10x multiplier. If you're looking at all the other cards and comparing the data to it, it should be around a 10x multiplier. So this card, I think, is pretty underrated in a PSA 10. Like I said, the starter, fire. A lot of kids are going to be growing up, and this is going to be their starter Pokemon. So this could be a good buy, honestly. I personally like this card. I'm not saying go buy it, but I just personally like this card. I'm going to be looking for this card in a PSA 10, especially before it blows up, because it's a mid-20s TCG player, raw. And a PSA 10, you got 555, 9, you got 1266, 8, you got 511. So not the worst card, not the toughest grade, but it's still pretty difficult. And last sold in a PSA 10, you got 217 and 225, 205. So, I mean, it's still a decent multiplier. It's basically a 10x. But I just really like this card for some odd reason. That's why I decided to throw in there. Another card that I think is severely underrated is a Chin-Pao. I've already said how much I really like this artwork right here. It's a decently easy grade. It's not the easiest, but there are more 10s than 9s by a decent margin. But a card that's $20 raw, last sold in a PSA 10, $155. And then you got, there was another one, $140. I mean, that's still like a 6x multiplier, but it is a legendary Pokemon for the Gen 9. And I just really like this card. So like I said, I threw this one in there for personal bias as well. But if you can get this card for low 100s, I still think that's a pretty good buy. Because, I mean, how low could it get? You know what I'm saying? The lows was already in the 70s. So it's chugging along right now pretty good if we're getting it for 155 and 140. So that is showing it does have some growth. It does have a little bit of fan favorite that's like, hey, this card is kind of underrated. Let me buy it right now. This one is kind of just cute. You kind of just have the Heracross standing by the side of the road. But raw is only $18, $526 in a 10. And 9s, you got almost 1,300. And 8s, you got 531. So a tough grade. Last on the PSA 10, 260, 205, 207. So, man, that's over a 10x multiplier. But that's actually a really tough grade. Next up, we got the Baxcalibur. So this evolution line kind of went crazy there for a second. And it was one of those pump and dumps. If you were here, if you know, you know. But like I said, doesn't change the data over everything. 608 in a 10, 1645 and a 9, 626. Shout to Stitch and an 8. Raw's $18. Last on the PSA 10. If I can find one, you got 175, 242, 190, 350. That might be a little outlier. So we're looking at the high 100s, low 200s, which is a 10x multiplier. So now we're gonna go to a couple bigger cards. You got we're going to Obsidian Flames. You got the Charizard SIR. So this is one of the few SIRs that is really hard to grade. Like, I didn't realize how hard it was to grade until I looked at the stats right here. So in a 10, so it's about a $95-ish card raw. In a PSA 10, you got 11,000 in a PSA 10, okay? And a 9, you got 22,000 in a 9. So you got double in a 9 than you do in a 10. And then in an 8, you got another 8,000 in an 8. So between the 9s and 8s, you got 30,000 cards. And then in a 10, you got 11,000. So, I mean, that's probably what, a 35, 36% gem rate for an SIR, which is pretty rare. Last holds in a PSA 10, you got 770, 600, which is kind of low. That's a good buy right there, whoever got that one. Then you got 650, 620, 908, 650, 640, 550. I mean, there's some good buys. People are getting some deals out there. Those are legit sales. But yeah, this is one of the few SIRs that's really, really tough to grade. And I mean, it's a decent multiplier. I think actually, if you look at the stats and compare it to the others, the multiplier should be a little bit more, if I'm being honest with you. If it's a $95 card raw and we're only getting to the, we'll say 600-ish range, 650-ish range, I feel like that multiplier should be a little bit bigger, if I'm being honest with you. Next up, we got one of my personal favorite illustration rares. I've never heard one person say one bad thing about this card. It's beautiful. Ninetales in general just kind of has a lot of really, really nice artworks. It's not the hardest to get in a 10, but it's pretty difficult right now. You got, it's raw, it's about mid-20s. You got 41, 41, and a 10. And a 9, you got 9205, and an 8, you got almost 2900. Last sold in a PSA 10, you got 232, 266, 290, 265. So, but it was up in the mid threes, and now it's kind of coming down a little bit. So we might be creeping up on a good buy time right here for the Ninetales, especially when Obsidian Flames go out of print. Like all these cards that we've been going over are the early Scarlet and Violet era, so they'll be going out of print in April. So this could be ready for a jump. A lot of these cards could be ready for a jump. We got the Cleffa. I know it's a Cleffa. It's not the most special Pokemon, but this artwork is so, so clean. It's smooth. It just looks so good. But you got 2,700 basically in a 10. You got 6,000 in a 9. 1,761 in an 8. Last sold in a PSA 10, you got 260, 255. And it's raws mid-20s. So, I mean, that's a 10x multiplier. And it's just a sleek, there you go. That was the word I was looking for. It's a nice looking card. Next up, we got the Gloom. I actually had this in a 10 and I sold it like a idiot. But raw, it's about $15. Wow. PSA 10s, you got 1,900. PSA 9s, you got 4,728. And at 8s, you got 1,685. Last sold in a PSA 10, you got 202. 210, 250, 222, 350, 400. Oh my goodness, we were getting up there. But as you can see from the chart, it's climbing slowly but surely. It's climbing up. And it's a really nice artwork. You got some Weedles down here just staring at each other. But it's a really nice artwork. The color scheme goes pretty well together. Next up, we got the Scizor. So this one is pretty crazy. This one is really, really tough to grade. So raw, it's $11, $12 card. You got $12.35 in a 10. You got $35.56 in a 9. And then you got $20.56 in an 8. So there's almost double the amount of 8s and triple the amount of 9s than there are 10s. This is a really tough grade right here. This might be the worst percentage 10s that we've gone over so far. Last sold in a PSA 10. Do we even have any? You got 280, 300. Is there any other ones? And 300. So we're 231 I saw. So we're looking at the mid 2s to low 3s and a PSA 10. And it's kind of leveling out right now, but it was always pretty valuable in the PSA 10. People were realizing that from the past 6 months. But like I said, that's a really tough gem rate. This, like I said, when it goes out of print, this could be on a bump here shortly as well. Next up, we got the Lechonk. Nothing too special about this card, but it is still a really good multiplier. You got 814 and a 10, 1872 and a 9, and 614 and an 8. Last sold in a PSA 10. You got 207. Anything else? Okay, you got 207. So we're looking at the low 2s right now. That's crazy, only one sell. But it's really good multiplier. It's just Lechonk. This is how you feel after the buff area here. You're just going to lay down and pass out. Next up, we got the Pidgey. This is kind of like the throwback arcade game. It's really nice. It's a Gen 1 Pokemon. It's probably out of the evolution line. Pidgey might be the favorite. And kind of with the Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Snorlax cards, throughout the Scarlet and Violet era, there's always Pidgeys playing with them, just kind of chilling with them. That Pidgey kind of got a little bit more buzz around him, or Pidgey. But PSA 10, you got 1211, 9, you got 2713, 8, you got 821. Last sold in PSA 10 is 105. Raw is about $10, so it's only a 10x multiplier, and I really don't think it's gonna be going any lower. Like it's currently bumping up. It's gone up about $20 recently, so be on the lookout for this Pidgey right here. Next up, we got the Houndour. You got exactly 1200 in PSA 10, 2558 in a 9, 759 in an 8. It's about an $8 card. Last sold in PSA 10, 105, 117. So low risk. It's only $8, and it's over a 10x multiplier. So pretty high reward for that one. Last one before we get to my sleepers ones, because everybody's like, what's the big one? You got the Charizard EX Sunzard from 151. This card's also really, really hard to grade. You got 23,000 in the PSA 10, 36,000, 36.5 thousand in a 9, and then you got 12,000 in an 8, and another 2,000 in a 7. So this card has been graded a lot of times, and it's pretty tough grade. Didn't really realize it until looking at this, but it's a pretty tough grade right now. Going raw is about 280s, 285. Last sold in the PSA 10 is 1300, 1200, 1250, 1200. So maybe you could see it. It's already kind of gone on a rise right now. That maybe it's kind of level out, but then when it goes out of print, could go on another rise. We never know where these PSA 10 slabs go. They fluctuate all the time, but usually, I mean, it's on a rise right now. It looks like it's kind of starting leveling out a little bit, which is kind of just healthy growth, I guess you can say. So these ones are the biggest multipliers, but I think they're really good buys right now, personally. We got the poster collection promos from 151. They're $1. You could probably get them 75 cents, $1 a card all day long. Okay, they're not expensive. They're really cheap. But if you get PSA 10s, they're $50, $40, $50, $60, you know. And then if you get them sequential, like if you do all three of them in a row, that adds a little premium to it. Just if somebody was trying to make a cheap play, send a bunch of these in, and just see what happens. You're getting 50, 60x on multipliers with these cards. I know you're like, well, it goes from $1 to $50, but if you send a bunch of these cards in, you're not going to get upcharge, okay? Because they're only 60, maybe $70 at the max right now, okay? So you're not going to get upcharge. You're on a 50, 60x multiplier with these cards, and guess what? If they get a 9, let's just say they get a 9, it's $15, $14. I know it costs to grade the card, but it costs what, $18? Then you pick them up. So you're in the total card for $19, and if you get a 15, then you're 4x on total on your money. But it's not that expensive to buy a bunch of these to send them in to get graded. It's just something that you could speculate on. Like I said, obviously people aren't going to do this, but if you look at it, they're pretty tough to grade. You got 1412 in a 10, 1576 and a 9 for the Squirtle, okay? For the Charmander, you got 1181 in a 10, 1651 in a 9, and the Bulbasaur is a crazy hard. That's insane. That's a big discrepancy. You got 785 in a 10 and 1774 in a 9. So obviously, don't just go, because they are promos, okay? They are trapped in plastic, so don't just go buy a bunch of them and send them all without getting graded. And that's with all the cards that I showed with you guys. Don't just go be willy-nilly and just go grab a card to send and get graded and hope it gets a 10. Because with how hard and how difficult it is for these cards to get a 10, it probably is not going to get PSA 10 if you're just not really focusing and being detailed with the cards while you're looking at them. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. And like I said, I know it was a little bit longer one. We had a lot to get through, but I appreciate all the love and support as always. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for your chance to win the Victini promo, Black Star promo from the Black and White, not poster collection, but it's a collection box, but it's a Victini illustration rare. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me what your secret like sleeper slab is that you think is ready to take off in the comment section below. You guys have a great night. Have a good one. Peace.